Hello, I'm Dave Wilson, bailli délégué honoraire de la confrérie de la Chaine des Rotisseurs, Bailliages des États-Unis. I'd like to introduce you to Roger Baker, the bailli of the Bailliage de Naples.
And we're here to commemorate a very important milestone event in the history of the Bailliage de Naples, which is that 40 years ago, this chapter was founded. I thought we might celebrate this milestone by taking a look back down the road we have come at past baillis and some of the major events they created, shaping our 4 decades of history. It might be hard to believe today, but 40 years ago, the population of Naples was less than 10,000. It was considered a cultural wilderness and a fine dining desert. But as the community's reputation as a haven in a tropical paradise spread, more and more visitors and residents flocked here from throughout the US and overseas. Soon, Naples became a multicultural oasis, the perfect place for an international gourmet society to take root, and one did. The Chaine des Rotisseurs, the oldest, largest, and most historic food and wine society in the world. This distinguished organization traces its roots back to the year 1248 in medieval France, where a guild of ailleurs, or goose roasters, was awarded a royal charter from King Louis IX. The guild's purpose was to improve the technical knowledge of its members, masters, apprentices, and tradesmen. As time passed, however, the mission of the Goose Roasters Guild was expanded to include game and other meats, and the guild changed its name to the Chaine des Rotisseurs. Today, there are more than 25,000 members around the world, belonging to hundreds of bailliages in 80 countries on 5 continents. Many distinguished men and women from all over the world have been members of the Chaine at some point in their lifetime. Some may surprise you. For example, Her Majesty, the Queen of the United Kingdom, Pope Francis, President Ronald Reagan, the legendary movie director Sir Alfred Hitchcock, Academy Award winner Gene Hackman, and the world-renowned celebrity chef Jacques Pepin, meaning we are all in distinguished company. On May 1st, 1981, a chapter in Naples was formed by a group of like-minded gourmets led by Eli Strasner, a wine and food transplant from the Midwest. Eli had been a wine consultant and a former food and wine columnist for a local newspaper in St. Louis, where, most importantly, he had served as a bailli for the local chapter. They named the chapter here as the Bailliage of Naples on the Gulf. Among the first members were Ed Davis, who had moved to Naples from an executive position at the Breakers Hotel in Palm Beach to become manager of the Royal Ponciano Golf and Country Club in Naples, and Dr. Walter Fisher Brooks, a surgeon from Dusseldorf, who had built one of the hottest dining spots in Naples at the time, known as the Mirabelle, which was on Naples Bay. This is where the opening night black tie gala and induction ceremonies were held on May 3rd, 1981. At the time, Dr. Walter Fisher Brooks was the chargé de mission of the bailliage of North Rhine-Westphalia, Bavaria, when news of the launch of a new bailliage in Florida caused quite a stir. No less than 46 members of the Bavarian bailliage and its bailli flew over to show their support and attend the event. And that's not all. They were accompanied by the Rhine-Westphalia Bavaria marching band, ensuring the event was as colorful and memorable as it was spectacular. Fisher Brooks also invited a distinguished Bavarian chef named Bertold Sieber to spin his culinary magic throughout the evening, creating a towering 8-course banquet to mark the occasion. Ed Davis was formally named first bailli, and Eli Strasner was given the honorary title of bailli d'honneur. An eager crowd of an extraordinary number of 25 newcomers was inducted that night, giving a wonderful start to the new chapter. It might have been even more of a memorable evening had the President of the United States attended, and that was the plan. The President was Ronald Reagan, who knew the Chaine de Rotisseurs very well. He had attended a dozen Chaine events in his lifetime, and it was hoped he would attend this one, an important international event. An invitation had been prepared, but it was never sent because of the attempt on his life just 2 months before. Nevertheless, the voyage was off to an outstanding start, but trouble was on the horizon. 4 years and several 8-course dinners later, bailli Davis left town to manage a private club in New Jersey. Eli Strasner was expected to take over the chapter, but sadly, he died before he could do so. His death left a very serious void. The voyage was left without direction and struggling to survive. But, fortunately, a new era dawned a short while later, in 1985, when a sophisticated Englishwoman named Ruth Kenyon Whiteside Fisher came forward. She was a woman with homes in London and Naples, international taste, and useful connections. She stepped up to lead the group and was elevated to bailli in 1986 at a dinner aptly called the Revival Dinner, held at the Registry, now the Naples Grand. 11 members renewed their membership that evening, and 10 more were inducted. These included Roger Arbery, co-founder of the now well-established caterers You've Got It Coming, and Mara Janko Daniels, the much-celebrated founder of the Phil, now Artist Naples. 3 years later, membership had climbed to 54. Ruth believed,
"Fine dining is one of the experiences of a lifetime, akin to art and music, and a wonderful opportunity to create fantasy."
Among Ruth's many fantasy events were a dinner tasting of varieties of caviar from around the world that was attended by several senior Chaine VIPs, including then bailli délégué Roger Yassin and Jean Valby, a renowned critic and author who was one of the small group to spearhead the Chaine's Renaissance in 1950. Other spectacular events during Ruth's era were a French feast honoring 2 great stars of the Belle Époque, hotelier César Ritz and chef-restaurateur Auguste Escoffier, and a Swedish Christmas festival, a dinner of Swedish delicacies marking the 350th anniversary of the founding of the new Swedish colony in North America. Among the guests attending that evening were His Excellency, the Swedish Ambassador to the United States, Count Wilhelm Wachtmeister, and his wife, Countess Ulla, the Swedish golf champion and winner of the 1988 US Open, and Robert Mondavi, chairman of the Mondavi Group. Other fun and innovative events during bailli Fisher's term were an ice carving demonstration at the cuisine management workshops of longtime member Tony Ridgway, and a Munich-style Oktoberfest. The 1990s began with Jeanette Boucher being elevated to bailli at a Catalan dinner at the Philharmonic Center for the Arts in April. Jeanette served as bailli for 3 years, from 1990 to 1993. Her term was highlighted by several landmark occasions, one of which was a Viennese Christmas, which the Naples Daily News described as
A feast fit for an emperor, recreating the cuisine of the old empire and the elegance of the Habsburg court. The bejeweled affair at the Registry Resort challenged the imagination, titillated the taste buds, and delighted the eye.
Jeanette was also responsible for a blending of old and new world cuisine in a colonial Williamsburg Christmas, faithfully staged as it would have been during the 18th and 19th century in Williamsburg, capital of the British colony of Virginia. During the reception that evening, quail egg with beluga caviar was served, along with maple wood-cured salmon, mallard duck, breast of wild pheasant, and canapés of terrine of sole and lobster. Jeanette was a major champion of the Société de Mondiale and was deeply committed to raising funds to assist in the education of chefs, an initiative that received national attention. She was also the first woman to be elevated to the national board when she became national chargée de presse and editor at Gastronome magazine, later going on to become publisher. In recognition of her many significant national and international contributions to the Chaine, Jeanette Boucher was awarded the Gold Star of Excellence by Bailli Délégué Bert Hobson in 1997. Next in the hot seat was William Gortner, who became Bailli in 1993. He had long been interested in the culinary arts, having been winning baking prizes since the age of 12. During Will's term, several innovative Mondial events were held, and the pattern of themed events continued. A pirate party was held at the Port Royal Club in 1993, remembering when Port Royal, Jamaica was, quote,
The wickedest city on earth.
But the highlight of Will's term came in 1995 when the Naples Bailliage hosted a regional assemblage at the Registry Hotel, where the hotel's ballroom was transformed into a nightclub for an evening of Florida, Caribbean and Cuban specialties. And that was just the first night. Bill was a big believer in costumes, as shown here with his wife Betty, dressed as sardines. Between 1996 and 2014, it was the ladies of the Naples Bailliage who primarily took the helm, beginning with Dr. Melissa Gridley. Melissa's 3-year term was marked by the unusual event themes she selected, beginning with her elevation at a dinner at the Ritz saluting the great Auguste Escoffier. In the fall of 1996, the Port Royal Club became the venue for un pique-nique provençal, featuring not only a sumptuous buffet, but also croquet and boule, members dressed in traditional whites for that event. One of the most unusual dinners during Melissa's tenure was an event called Flora and Fauna, held at the Conservancy. After exploring the backwaters of this nature preserve, members dined in its Natural History Museum. When the evening came to an end, few realized their feast had been totally vegetarian. Jerry Thirion took office in 1999, bringing with him considerable managerial experience in the hospitality industry, having served as general manager at the great Don Cesar Hotel in St. Petersburg and the Colony Beach and Tennis Club in Longboat Key, among others, before relocating to Naples when he became vice president and managing director of the Registry Resort. Jerry continued the tradition of designing events around a theme, with one of his first being a colorful Cuban fiesta, complete with island music and hand cigar rolling. In 2001, the Chaine celebrated the holidays early with a holiday season party at Mediterra in September. When Lacey became Bailli the following year, she brought with her the experience of a 25-year diplomatic career, during which she dined with heads of state and ambassadors from around the world. She continued the Bailliage reputation for stellar events with flair. Members who were present at the 12th night dinner in January 2003 will remember the roasted pig on a gaily decorated platform paraded through the dining room by 4 servers in Elizabethan garb. and a Silk Road dinner focused on cuisine from China to Italy and featuring scents of exotic spices and curios from Arab street markets as centerpieces. In 2005, Naples and Lacey hosted a US Grand Chapitre, the most important event on the Chaine's national calendar, investing 18 months of detailed planning. Unfortunately, a Hurricane Cat 5 named Wilma blew into town, coinciding with this mega event, forcing Lacey to make some whirlwind moves of her own to save the day, happily resulting in one of her most famous events and earning her a gold medal. The following year, 2006, Lacey excelled again, hosting a silver and blue 25th anniversary party for the Bailliage. In 2008, the time came for Lacey to pass the baton, this time to Sandy Moran. Sandy was in a unique position to take over. She and her husband Tom, wine collectors and connoisseurs and generous philanthropists, frequently gave up their extensive lakeside residence as a venue for glorious evenings long remembered by those lucky enough to attend them. One of the most memorable of all was Under the Tuscan Sun, the farewell event of her term. It was an awesome dinner, of course, but it was especially notable not only for a spectacular firework display that exploded over the lake at the bottom of their grounds, but also for the large number of Chaine officers and guests who traveled to pay tribute to her exemplary term, and the many more who sent messages read out aloud during the evening. Sandy was awarded a gold medal by the Bailli delegate George Brown in March 2014. Her departure after 2 3-year terms left another huge void for the Bailliage. She had set such a high standard, admired nationally throughout the Chaine, that no one felt up to the task of replacing her. But board member Ed Colzar agreed to take over and served for 2 years from 2014 to 2016. His term is remembered most for 3 outstanding Mondial events, a truly glorious Opus 1 dinner and a Domaine Serene and Château de la Crête dinner, attended by the winery's founders, our members Grace and Ken Evanstad. Both events were held at Mediterra, where he and his partner lived. The third was an Antinori dinner attended by the delightful Piero Antinori. Unfortunately, during his later months in office, Ed expected to move away from Naples and anticipated the need to step down as Bailli.
I'm Dave Wilson, Bailli Delegate Honoraire of the Chaine. In the midst of the uncertainty of Ed's departure, board member Roger Baker stood up at a Chaine dinner one evening and surprised everyone, including his wife Paula, by volunteering to take over the balance of Ed's term. Roger had served on the local board for several years and had just been offered a seat on the national board as vice-chargé de presse. Fortunately, he turned down that job in favor of taking on the challenges of maintaining our local bailliage and keeping the level of excitement high. His first objective was to get more members involved. He realized he had several veteran members in his ranks who had served in important regional and national positions. Putting great value on their experience, he invited them to form an advisory board. At the same time, he created a wine and dinner committee, each comprised of members often with vast experience in relevant industries. And he created bailliage ambassadors, whose mission was to help new members become comfortable at events they attended for the first time. As a result, the bailliage grew each year to almost 150 members, and it was still climbing prior to the arrival of COVID-19 in March of 2020. Roger is perhaps most remembered for a great parade of events marked by music, romance, nostalgia, and just sheer spectacle. Let's take a look back at some of them. Among the first was a Chinese New Year, held at Charlie Chang's in January of 2017. Roger invited Christiana Chang, CEO of the multi-restaurant chain, to design the menu and attend as the bailliage's guest. She flew in from her headquarters in Washington, D.C. with her personal chef, who prepared an authentic New Year's dinner. Well, Christiana described the importance of each traditional dish and regaled members with wonderful stories of her childhood New Year's as she grew up in Taiwan. The induction gala that year was a particularly memorable one for Roger. During the evening, then Bailli delegate Hal Small had flown in for the occasion to present Roger with a silver medal for his communication support during the national election campaign and his ongoing work as contributing editor for Gastronome magazine. An Everglades safari on World Shen Day was attended by members from both the Bonita and Naples bailliages, who after the trip came together for lunch at the famous Rod and Gun Club. Ellen Goodrich from Bonita was late joining the lunch. By the time he arrived, there was only one seat left, and as fate would have it, it was at a table next to our former bailli, Lacey King. A romance blossomed. But wait a moment, we'll come back to that later. Meanwhile, other events that year were 12 Days of Christmas at the Tiburon Golf Club, an Elizabethan dinner celebrating 12th night, and a mouth-watering salute to the great chefs, when each course was a recreation of a dish originally created by chefs such as Tom Keller of the French Laundry in Percé, Charlie Trotter in Chicago, Daniel Bouloud of Le Cirque, and Paul Bocuse in Lyon. Meanwhile, other events during his term included a high-end wine tasting in a palatial private home, a Sicilian dinner with the Godfather, some great Christmas parties, a Venetian carnival, and an unforgettable African safari when we traveled by motor coach to an authentic-looking safari camp a few miles outside of Naples, where we were entertained by tribal musicians and dancers from West Africa, stilt walkers, fire eaters, and got up close and personal with the wildlife, all before a dinner of amazing African food and wine under a big tent. Then World Shen Day came around again. This time, Roger suggested to Alan and Lacey the idea that they might get married this World Shen Day while on board a Shen sunset dinner cruise. And so it was that two senior citizens from two different bailliages became the first members anywhere in the world to marry on World Shen Day. The story made headlines in Naples and around the globe. However, members who climbed aboard the Naples Princess that afternoon had no idea what was about to happen. They were expecting a normal Shen dinner and a simple cruise. They were thrilled to be greeted by a love boat, decked out by Alan and Lacey and their friends, for a spectacular wedding at sea officiated by the town's mayor, Bill Barnett. Here are just a few shots from that very special evening. Charlie Chaplin showed up for a Cannes Film Festival induction dinner. Well, not exactly the real Charlie Chaplin, of course, but a damn good impersonator, officially sanctioned by the Chaplin estate. He entertained brilliantly with magic and zany antics throughout the dinner. During the evening, I had the honor of presenting our regional bailli, Susan Varashi, with a Silver Medal of Honor for her outstanding leadership of the Southeast region. Soon after the film festival event, a Pan Am dinner literally almost brought the roof down, commemorating the golden age of flight in the 1920s and 30s, the luxury Pan Am clippers that spanned the oceans, and the opening of a seaplane terminal at LaGuardia Airport almost 100 years ago. An incredible multi-course menu was created by Brian Rowland and his staff at Crave Culinaire, drawing the inspiration for each dish from Pan Am destinations around the globe. And a fab trio, the Ladies for Liberty, serenaded members and their guests with toe-tapping songs from the age of swing that really had the place rocking. Just listen to them.
Come on along and you can listen to a baby cry, the lullaby of old Broadway. The jumpin', jivin' and swing-a-roo, the lullaby of Broadway.
Wait a minute. You've forgotten one very memorable and very unusual event Roger brought to the bailliage. Early in Roger's term, encouraged by a show of hands vote at one of his dinners, Roger and Paula planned a luxury tour of the principal wineries of Tuscany. A group of us were delighted to join, and here we all are. On our first night, we assembled at a former monastery in Fiesole with a spectacular view of Florence. The Belmont Villa San Michele, on a hill overlooking Florence, was where we first met our guides, Nancy Canella and the very laid-back Filippo Magnani, who we found out was the editor of the Italian Wine Spectator. Throughout our trip, we were escorted and traveled in small luxury coaches through Tuscany's spectacular scenery. We visited famed hilltop villages, and we even went on a truffle hunt. There was plenty of time for shopping, of course. And in one town, Lisa even got engaged, in Montepulciano. We were even lucky enough to watch the filming of a jousting scene for the Netflix miniseries, and that's where Lisa made friends with the cast. Throughout our trip, we enjoyed some amazing dinners. We learned about and tasted many different wines. We studied the vines and learned about the terroir. Lisa enjoyed the wine so much, she placed an enormous order to ship home. While Cindy wanted to take home a puppy, and Larry wanted to take home a wild boar. As you know, Tuscany is also known for falconry. Many locals still hunt the hills with their birds, has been their custom for centuries. So, of course, a few of us had to try our hand after our esteemed leader. Once Roger got it under control, Larry tried to hypnotize the bird while I asked to pose for a selfie. The whole experience was wonderful, and it stuck with us so much so we call ourselves the Falconieri and have a medal for surviving it. This year we'll have a new leader, but before we make a change, I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say thanks to Roger and to all our great baillis over the past 40 years. Thanks for the memories.
Happy 40th birthday.
Voyage to Naples.
Santé.